Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian, and I'm so excited to have with us today Marti Skold-Jordan. She is the manager of Tractor Supply Foundation and Community Relations. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Marti.
Thank you so much, John. You have fascinating podcasts, and I'm so anxious to be on and chat with about what we're doing here at Tractor Supply.
Well, I'm so glad you came on today, and I'm really honored you came on because this is really important story, what you and your colleagues are doing at Tractor Supply with your foundation. But before we get going about all the great work at Tractor Supply you're doing, tell us a little bit about your fascinating and wonderful career, where you grew up, and how you even got on this path at the Tractor Supply Foundation.
Well, I grew up in a tiny little farm town, one stoplight, cornfield across the street, Benson, Minnesota, very tiny out in southwestern Minnesota. Norwegian and Swedish parents, and my grandparents were actually in North Dakota, and North Dakota was Tractor Supply's very first store that opened up 85 years ago. So we're celebrating our 85th anniversary, and not a lot of people know where Minot, North Dakota is, but I do because my grandparents and their parents were actually immigrants from Norway and homesteaded in North Dakota. So I know that area like the back of my hand. Spent 30 years in television news all over the country, upstate New York, Miami, Los Angeles. Kind of ran into some common friends that we have there. Yep. But I left television after 30 years, and I knew that I wanted to go into work either in nonprofit or corporate media. So I went into corporate media for GSK, started running their stewardship program, and then went to Honeywell, ran their global foundation. And then Tractor Supply found me and brought me here to Nashville, Tennessee. And they started this foundation in 2020. Last year, we spent over $15 million giving back across communities across the country. And so it is a great opportunity to run a brand new foundation and come up with our funding focus pillars.
And also it brings you right back full circle to your roots of farming.
Absolutely. And I love Tractor Supply. We've been in many Tractor Supplies because we've always had pets, and a lot of folks go in and buy their dog food, their horse feed. Even if you have a chicken coop that you've decided to raise chickens, or just people who are living in urban areas are starting to do a lot more gardening and doing things at home.
That's so interesting. So for our listeners and viewers to find Marti and her colleagues and the foundation and Tractor Supply, please go to www.tractorsupply.com. Marti, then when they started this foundation in 2020, what was the mission? What was the general overview of their corporate social responsibility overview thought process that went into this foundation?
You know, John, we believe that we are all stewards of life out here. And I'll give you a perfect example. This morning, I had 30 people over on land that was deemed unusable at one time. It's called cultivate. So the two is cultivate. And it's folks who have come out of being incarcerated, and they're teaching them gardening, horticulture skills. They attain a master gardening certificate, and many of them are now working for the state, for jobs, for farms. It's really this great program. The land was deemed unusable by the state. It's on a floodplain. They raise 250,000 pounds of produce a year for food deserts. So folks here are eating due to that. And then half of their other produce goes to restaurants like Tzatziki's. We're their biggest funder. And so I brought folks over there, and we all had on our backs stewards of life out here. Folks that I was talking to, executives who had meetings this afternoon, a few had their ear pods in, but we were harvesting what we had helped them plant in the spring. And so it really brings it full circle for us. So our 4 pillars, first of all, is ag education. We're the largest funders of FFA and 4-H. I sit on the National FFA board. We started this year a $5 million commitment for scholarships for FFA. And that's kids who are going to be working in places in rural America. So we do it for 4-year universities, kids going to community college, or even kids who are starting a skilled trade. So they are the eventual diesel mechanics and the vet techs and folks who are going into agribusiness. And so we have our very first class coming in. They started a few weeks ago, and they're living in their dorms. And some of these kids are first generation to graduate from high school, let alone go off to college. And so this has really been wonderful for us. So first pillar for our funding pillars is ag education, FFA and 4-H.
Right.
Second is land and nature conservation, like that farm we were on this morning. But people have been losing their family farms all over the United States. And so it's to help with regenerative farming or keeping people on their family farms. So we invest in a lot of land trusts. American Farmland Trust, for our 85th anniversary, we gave them $850,000. So 85 farmers across the country from California to Connecticut will be getting these small micro grants. And because of climate change, think about this. Maybe they were at one time growing wheat and corn. Now they're potentially changing over to bees, honeybees, and strawberries, just because the way the climate is. And so this will allow these farmers to do that. So that's our second bucket. Our third is pets and companion animals. And one of my very favorite organizations that we fund there is called Dogs on Deployment. And if people are deployed overseas 2 to 4 years, they cannot take their furry family members with them. So this organization finds foster families that will take care of them while the armed services folks are abroad. And then we help with the vet bills and the food. So that is just one of the organizations that we dearly love. And then finally, it's our community bucket. And that's Make-A-Wish. That's our veterans programs. That's if there's a tornado, hurricane, wildfire, we go in. There's times that we've sent in 300 bales of hay and fencing because people may have lost their livelihoods because their animals got out because of a tornado. So those are some of the things that we do and that we fund.
That's amazing, Marti. I mean, you're covering some of the most important issues that we face here in America today. Education, absolutely, is so under discussed in the media and everything else, and educating our next generation. I'm very familiar with FFA because here I live in Fresno, California. I'm a New York City boy who now lives in Fresno. Married a young lady that grew up on a farm as well, and from the raisin industry. But my assistant and chief of staff of 25 years, her 2 daughters are FFA stars in terms of they raised champion lambs for years. And then that helped propel their careers at Fresno State in ag, and which has a huge ag program. So FFA is very big on this side of in the farming, in the ag belt of the West Coast of the United States. And it's such a great organization. And I give you so much credit for, first of all, sitting on their board, but then the education element of what Tractor Supply is doing is tremendous. Then pets and animals. We all love pets and animals. And then talk about veterans and Make-A-Wish. I mean, my gosh. So you're really covering a lot of ground. Now, is this all under the foundation, or is this also foundation / philanthropy / corporate responsibility? How does it all tie together under the umbrella of what you deal with and how you manage all this?
Yeah, it's definitely under corporate social responsibility, sustainability. So if you look at ESG, environmental, we've got a group that's working on that.
Right.
The social really falls under the foundation, and then government, but it kind of all really melds together. And a good example that I give is by 2025, Tractor Supply is committed to preserving 25 million gallons of water. And that's our water goal. But how do we do that? Half of it we can do through our stores, what we're doing. But we also decided to bring in the foundation. So we are funding 2 organizations for a 3-year partnership. The first one is Ducks Unlimited. And it's a partnership where between North Dakota, our first store, and Texas, where we have 224 stores,
Wow.
it's the migratory bird path. So if you think about all the wetlands there that have been changed over into construction areas and not being used as wetlands anymore, we can save half of that amount, 12.5 million gallons, by just going in and doing wetland mitigation. And then we're also working with Trout Unlimited to put trees in across the United States. Good example is in California. If you look at all the wildfires, really in the shadows and the footprint of our stores, we have 2,180 stores across the United States. If you think about that footprint, a lot of wildfires. And so we've planted thousands of trees. And on Earth Week, we took folks out of our headquarters here, our store support center, and we planted 450 trees one day and got rid of 9 acres of invasive species. All of that is going to be preserving water for us. So there's a way that we can do this through our foundation, through partners, and save water. So it really is helping us towards that 2025 water goal.
So, Marti, when you came in, you started in what year did you start in again? Did you start in 2020 when they created this foundation?
No, I came in January of 2022.
Okay, 2022. So when you took it over, it was only 2 years. It was still very, embryonic stage. Was this a clean, like a white sheet? Was this a whiteboard that you took over, or was there already some velocity and already some mandates, or how much of it is still a work in progress, because it's still unbelievably fairly new, but you're covering so many topics?
Yeah. So when I came in, they had these in place, but we really streamlined them and decided on these are going to be our partners. These are the programs that we're going to fund. But this is something that I've always believed, whether I was here, Honeywell, GSK, we don't just write a check and walk away. We want to shepherd our money. So we put our executives on boards. We sit at the table with them and talk about programming. We don't just write a check and walk away. Right. That amount of money is for a particular program. It's programmatic spend, and that's going to move the needle on something. Right. You mentioned Make-A-Wish, and I have to share this story because it's one of my favorite stories. So a week ago, there was a little girl, 14 years old, who has cancer. And her wish was not to go to Paris, not to go to New York shopping, not to go to Disney. She wanted a mini Highland cow. So Make-A-Wish CEO called me and she's like, let's do this because it's definitely a Tractor Supply kind of story. So we found Homer the cow, who is as cute as can be, came up from Chattanooga, and they couldn't get Homer in the goat trailer or the horse trailer. So Homer was in the back seat of a King cab pickup and drove from Chattanooga to Nashville. They opened the door. Here comes Homer popping out like it was just the cutest thing ever. 175 pounds, has the Beatles hair, on a leash. And I had 23 of our vendors all pitch in from Tractor Supply for leashes, shampoo, bedding. Karina gave us a year's supply of food. So this little girl, when she came home from school, we had about 50 people out there with cowbells, and we surprised her. Here came Homer up the road. It was just one of the most precious, beautiful wishes that we could have granted. And I always say that I like to go to bat with a wand and to create some wishes. So we do those. We do puppies. We've done horses. We've done UTVs for kids who may have lost the use of their legs, and it's too hard for them to get from their house down to the creek to fish with their family. So really anything in the outdoors, Make-A-Wish calls, and we've done 16 in the last about year and a half.
So this isn't just, some company, and good for them too. But so this is not to make any enemies with anyone who just does this. You're not just check writers. You are really involved with everything you're doing, and you get the company involved. So people feel the nexus between writing the check, but also the whole impact that you're making as well.
Absolutely. And you were talking about FFA. Those kids will come into stores and have meetings at stores. The convention is coming up now at the end of October, beginning of November, and we have a massive booth there. We do line dancing and karaoke. But I just yesterday got a list of 7 schools that couldn't afford to go. So they're going to get what we call a surprise and delight in the next week or so. And either one of our store managers will come to the school. We will bring them into our store for a career talk. But before they leave, we'll be like, you're going to the convention and you're going to the convention. So that will all be coming up. And so we try to do that. Kids who can't afford, they need to be able to go and compete. It's on a national platform. And so if they can't get there, that's something that we'll pick up.
And now all these 4 pillars that roll up underneath you and the whole corporate responsibility and community relations and the foundation, all that then will roll back into your ESG and impact report that gets published every year, I take it.
Absolutely. And so we look at it for several reasons and several ways. Volunteerism is huge. And you asked about that. Yeah. So you write a check and you say, okay, we want to do this program with you. Well, that means that I'm going to have X amount of people go to the Boys and Girls Club. This morning, I brought 30 people over to cultivate, and I had about 40 over there when we were planting things. I had close to 180 people out planting those 450 trees. And so we make volunteerism really big. And I always say it's our time, our talent, and our treasure. So if we have people who can do pro bono work, some of our legal team, HR for some of these nonprofits, that also helps, but it also gives people really meaningful job tie-in with all of our nonprofits. The last 10 days, we had our giving campaign here in the office, and we raised money for our Tractor Supply Assistance Fund. And that's if there's one of those tornadoes or a hurricane and some of our people have losses, then we'll step in and help them. So that's very near and dear to our hearts, but also people signed up during that giving campaign for volunteerism. So we've got a veterans one coming up very soon. So we do that year round and make sure that those partnerships are true partnerships.
That's wonderful. For our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Marti Skold-Jordan with us today. She's the manager of the Tractor Supply Foundation and Community Relations, and manages all their important impact work with her colleagues. To find them and all the great and important work they're doing at the foundation and in community relations at Tractor Supply, please go to www.tractorsupply.com. Marti, so this is fascinating. You're never bored because you're literally managing this wide array of community events, not only locally, but outside of your area, and that have impact in so many different ways, both with veterans, with children and education, and with land management. And, I mean, this is just, I mean, you must almost like jump out of bed every morning. It sounds like a very exciting and really interesting position. How many, for our listeners and viewers who don't know who Tractor Supply is, now I love turning on CBS on Saturday mornings, watching the bull riding and seeing Tractor Supply logos all around the arena, because I say to myself all the time, what a great American brand. I mean, that's mom, apple pie, and the girl back home. I'm 61 years old. So to me, that just harkens back to all the great things about the United States Tractor Supply does. Talk a little bit about the company. It's 85 years old. It's got 2,180 stores. How many employees do you have, and how dispersed is your employee group across America?
We're in 49 states, and we're continuing to build. So we have 2,181 stores right now, and we're working our way on up to 3,000. And so we are a growing company. Wow. And if you think about where we are, we're really in rural America. We are in urban, suburban areas. COVID really changed the landscape for a lot of stores. For us, people wanted to be at home and do things at home and do gardening and get pets. And so that's exactly who we are. We were one of those businesses that it was a need to stay open because you needed to feed your horse and your chickens and take care of your farm, and then feed everybody else in the country as well. So it was very important during COVID. And a lot of folks found us during COVID. If you go into a Tractor Supply store, you can get baby chicks. We sold about 12 million last year, which is just a wonderful thing. But you can also go and buy your jeans and your shirts, and you can go into the garden center and get fruit trees for your backyard. You can get your pet food while you're there. Anything that you would really need for your house or your farm. A lot of folks decided to move out of those really urban areas and move into kind of urban suburban and have a little hobby farm. So we see a lot of those folks coming in. A lot of millennials come in now and shop with us. And so it's really a welcoming store. I always say it's about 5 stores in one store because you can really get everything at one stop.
That's amazing. So, last year in 2022 alone, you gave $15 million to charitable causes. Explain how much of that comes from Tractor Supply? How much do you have to go out and raise? How do you juggle the role of fundraising and philanthropy, and then how much to give whom? How do you make those decisions?
So part of it comes out of the foundation. Part of it is product donations. So say, for example, that UTV that the child might need for Make-A-Wish,
right.
That is a product donation. When there's a hurricane or a wildfire, we make sure that our stores have gift cards that go to volunteer fire departments. So that's something that we do very quickly. So all of those come in. And so I always say that it's kind of cause marketing. So right now we have the FFA shirts with the beautiful FFA down the sleeves for all those kids going to convention in our stores. But also several times a year, we have what's called our Clover campaign, and people can go in stores. And then when you shop and you're buying your jam and your jeans and maybe some chickens on the way out, it'll say, do you want to give $1, $5, $10 to 4-H? And many of the folks who shop with us were former 4-H or FFA. And they're like, yes, I remember this. I remember going to camp. And so we raise every time we do a Clover campaign, fall and spring, about $1 million just from our customers, because they remember those times at 4-H. I was in 4-H years and years ago. So it's cause marketing, it's in our stores, it's product donations, and then it's funding through our foundation and our company.
And so that itself is a huge enterprise. Talk a little bit about the other side. I mean, Marti, you're out there, you're in the community, you're unbelievably personable. I can imagine you're getting emails, text messages, phone calls every day of the week about new requests and new charitable causes to support. How do you make those very hard and difficult decisions when there's so many great causes out there? There's so many things that are in need out there. How is that made? How are those decisions made? I'm fascinated by that whole process.
John, we get so many requests in, but not all of them fit in those funding focus pillars. And that's why it's very important. My foundation board, and we meet 4 times a year, I bring them all of these different proposals. And some things fit in those and some things just don't. And that doesn't mean that they won't get funded. It just means that it's not our company, it's another company. So if you look at all the companies across the United States, they all kind of have their focus pillars. So some do STEM education, some do affordable housing. Ours are really a mirror of what our business is and who our customers are.
That's amazing. So what are you working on that you're allowed to discuss in the coming months and years ahead in 2024 and beyond? What initiatives get you really excited about that you're working on to release next year?
Well, coming up in about 2 weeks, we are going to announce on National Farm Day, all of the farmers for those 85 that will get the $10,000 mini grants. And that will be every state across the country. And so that's very, very exciting. And we're anxious to see what they're going to be doing with that funding. But coming up, definitely new programs through FFA. We do grants for growing with 4-H. We're looking at a couple other things with them. So really taking those partnerships that we have, expanding them, and really putting them across the country. Sometimes we will find an idea and we pilot it in one place, and then we will scale it up.
Marti, you've had a fascinating and wonderful career that's taken you, as you said earlier, everywhere from Miami to LA, now back to Nashville. And you've made an imprint everywhere you've gone. Talk a little bit to the young people that listen to this podcast, not only in the United States, but around the world. There's a whole new generation of young people that watch this podcast, that listen to it, that want to be the next Marti Skold-Jordan. And, and they don't know how to get going. They're getting out of high school. They're getting out of college. What advice can you give now to the next generation that not only are interested in making a living, which we all have to do to pay our groceries and keep the lights on, but also this generation is interested in what you're doing, making a living, but also making a difference.
Yeah. And I always say every day, I love my job. But no matter what I've done, whether I was on radio, television, doing a talk show, I loved what I did. And I put 100% of my soul and my heart into it. I knew, because I've always worked with nonprofits. I've always done community work. When I was in television, 18 years, I did the Jerry Lewis Telethon. And what people didn't know, I took a week off every year and would go to the camp with those kids and, did the telethon, but it was always the behind the scenes and it was the things on the weekend. So find something that you love outside of your work, whether it's in the community, whether it's a nonprofit, and give of your time, talent, and treasure there as well, because that comes back to you tenfold, 100-fold, and you're helping people that really need help, that can't help themselves sometimes. I think about that every time we do a wish reveal for these Make-A-Wishes. This is making such a difference, not only in that child's life, but their family as a whole. Their little boy on hospice, they had lost their dog. And so we found a dog that looked like the dog, and we brought the kennel and the bedding and all of those things. That hole was then filled by that puppy for that little boy. And for us, that's worth millions.
I love it. Marti, for those people that are listening to the show and want to become more involved with Tractor Supply stewardship efforts, how can they get more involved?
Well, look on our website and just keep watching the news. We'll continue to have the wishes and the farm stories. And if you'd love to get involved with FFA and 4-H, they need mentors. I love the Boys and Girls Club. I used to work with them out in LA and all over the country. So I say, if you have the time, be a mentor. Because all of these kids really deserve people who love their jobs and can open up the world to them.
I love it. Marti, you're doing such important and impactful work at Tractor Supply. You're always welcome back on the Impact Podcast. As you and I know, the work is never done. It's truly just a journey, and there's no finish line in this kind of great community work that you're doing with the foundation at Tractor Supply. You're always welcome back to come on to continue to share more wins and more great things that you're doing for the communities around this important country that we live in, and supporting these farmers and other people that really are the backbone of this great country that sometimes get forgotten by the media and everybody else as other bigger events in the media's mind take shape. But this is the kind of work that's so important and really makes us a great country. You're part of the fabric of this country. For our listeners and viewers to learn more about what Marti and her colleagues are doing in community work and sustainability and impact work at the Tractor Supply Foundation, please go to www.tractorsupply.com. Marti, Skold-Jordan, you're just a delight. I'm so thankful for everything you're doing. And thank you also for making the world a better place.
Thank you, John. Look forward to hearing many more of your podcasts.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.